Welcome everybody to the Storytime channel. My name is Steven, and today we have some entitled parent stories. Our first story of the day is by JLee7285, entitled Neighbor Wants Me to Remove Trees So He Can Have a Better View of Water. I live in Florida on an island. My home is on brackish to salt water and has a dock. There are many trees and bushes which I enjoy. From the backyard, it appears if I'm the only person on the water. There are nearly 100 palm trees in various stages of growth, large oak trees with Spanish moss, and native pine trees that can live for 300 years and is very slow growing. Some are over 100 years or older. When I first bought the home, my neighbor visited and seemed cordial. That was soon to change. Within a few months, he asked when I planned to remove all the trees and vegetation so that he could have a better view of the water from his home. The island is at a higher elevation, and my home is 40 feet above dock. If my yard were bare, he would be able to see for miles, but others could see into my home as well. Tried to be nice and told him that I enjoy the seclusion the forest provided and had not decided to remove any trees or shrubs. I further explained that it took a very long time for the trees to grow, and if removed, it would be 100 years or more before they could be replaced. Endangered animals, reptiles, and birds make a home in my yard, and I photograph them as they live their life. If I were to remove the trees and bushes, they would have no home, and there is very little habitat remaining for them. My reluctance to remove trees made him angry, and he complained that the trees were blocking his view of the water, since I live at the point near the deepest water. I countered that the view had been blocked for 100 years, and at the moment, I did not intend to make any changes to my yard, and that if he wanted changes, he should have bought the property. He walked off in a huff, but I cared little since he's rude. We continue to have problems on occasion, since I prefer a wild yard and he prefers grass. His yard is grass with no trees. I can name all the wild plants growing in the yard and know which are edible, poison, and which insects, reptiles, animals, or birds use those plants. Everything has a purpose. Just 1 month ago, after 15 years with me making no changes, he mentioned again that he thought I was going to remove some trees to clear a view to the river. I have removed a few non-native trees which were ornamental, but have replaced with nut trees or berry bushes. I explained that to him, which he again complained that a man's home is his castle, and he would like to have better views, and that I should have bought a home in the forest if I wanted that. I was floored, since my home is my castle. I repeated that nothing has changed in my yard and has not in over 100 years or more, and that I had in fact bought a home in a forest. This one. I then advised him again that if he wanted the property to his liking, he should have bought the property when it was for sale. If a neighbor was that argumentative with you about wildlife growing in your yard, would you be the kind of person to install some cameras and whatnot just to make sure that they try not to do anything too funny? Or at least you'll have proof if they do? Let me know in the comments down below. Our second story is by Princess Cream Puff. My mom wants a key to my house. Unfortunately, my relationship with my mom is shot. She shows up to my house unannounced and expects me to open up the door to my apartment. Mind you, this was my first time I moved out, and she immediately told me she hated it. My grandmother started slamming my cabinets and told me it was too small for me to stay here. She kept calling me, telling me she wanted me to come home for a little while with my cat, and while I was there, she got upset at me because she wanted to buy something for me and I said no. She told me that I was a witch because I'm so emotional all the time, and that if I wasn't promiscuous, I wouldn't be in this situation where I have to rely on her. It ultimately ended up in a physical altercation with me trying to rip her eyes out for being so darn rude to me. I was left with scars on my legs, and she has been getting worse by the week. After that, she changed the locks on me. She was so mad that I left home. I'm crying right now as I write this because I can't believe I give my mother and father so much power over me even when I'm not physically there. I have reached out to multiple family members and even my brothers to talk about why she is so vicious, but they told me they try to not even get in her way and just say yes to whatever she wants. I'm also on a phone bill with my stepfather and I accidentally overpaid and paid for both his half and mine. I called him and told him I needed my $60 back and he asked me if I was high. He did that to put me down so I wouldn't ask for my money back. He hasn't picked up my calls for 3 days, and he was mad that I bought a new phone without asking him first which one to get. So, she told me that she was sorry for calling me a witch and promiscuous, and that she would remake me a key. But then she called a couple weeks later, which is today, and told me I can have a key as long as she has a key to my house. She has shown up to my house unannounced and asked me if I was still sleeping with my ex or having girls over, or if I was still smoking weed. I told her she was so rude and stepping over my boundaries. She told me my brother never betrayed her, so that's why he can come over and have a key to the house. I hate my parents so bad. No, I'm not the one that needs to make the calls here, but I think OP laid it out exactly how it is. They're overstepping their boundaries. I think there's really only one of two ways you can go here. You either let them kind of trample all over you and do everything they want, or you just have to stand up for yourselves, and if that means cutting them off because they can't accept that you won't let them trample all over you, I think that's just kind of how it has to be. This next story is by Chaos Queen 73, entitled Mother Hates Our Truck and Cars. So a little backstory, my husband and I are drag racers, and we have 2 fairly loud cars along with a dually with straight exhaust. We don't rev out engines because we want to be a-holes, we start them when we have to move them out if we're working on them. Neither is that often, as they mainly stay in the trailer. They are race cars. Our neighbor has a son who lives with her. He's 40, doesn't work, and likes to sleep all day. Entitled Mother came to our house and told us, didn't ask, that we weren't allowed to start our cars until after her son is awake, and he usually gets up around 4 p.m. Our state laws say we can make loud noises between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Now we know other neighbors have smaller children, and so we don't start our race cars up until after 10 a.m. So we are within our rights, but she demands that we do not wake her son up because he needs his sleep. He's a 40-year-old man. Now I could understand why she would be mad if we took them out every day and parked next to her house in our driveway, but we don't. We just shake our heads in disbelief that one neighbor who has a grown adult child complains, but none of the 9 neighbors who have young children have said anything to us, except "that sounds good" or "nice cars." Now I understand not everyone is into cars, but that is not the case for her son. He bought a car that he's fixing up himself. I'll never understand entitled parents. I mean, just look at the situation. If they're a completely average 40-year-old person and they're living with their mother, that's probably because the mother has absolutely coddled them their entire life. Somebody that sleeps in until 4 p.m. isn't inherently lazy. They could just be working nights, but considering the circumstances, I kinda doubt it in this case. And there's one thing to sleep until 4 p.m., it's another to complain to neighbors that they're making noises at 4 p.m. I, for example, would not wait until the afternoon to start mowing my lawn just because it might be a little bit more considerate than starting at around 8 a.m. in the morning when the sun isn't fully out. Our next story is by Kitsune Skates. My mom is very homophobic and thinks that the LGBTQ+ is bad. Yep. What's even worse is I'm bisexual and my significant other is a trans male. I found out she's homophobic a while ago and it's really popped out lately. On the news, they were talking about the gay Captain America. Cool. I'm not interested in Marvel, but cool. She had gotten home about 10 minutes prior to turning on the morning news, so she was tired and hungry, 6-hour night shift, she's a cop, and didn't want to deal with something dumb in her perspective. When she heard the news anchor say gay, she turned to the TV, read the headlines, and said, "Where's the remote? What is this garbage?" After she turned the TV off, she turned to my 6-year-old little brother and said, "Family should be normal, with a mama and daddy," and she went to go put her PJs on. That didn't ruin my day, but it made me upset, and I didn't want to talk to her. Flash forward to a few days ago, me and my little brother are playing Flicker, a whodunit Roblox game that we think is very fun. During June of 2020, they added an LGBTQ+ role and decided to keep it. When they first added the role, my mom, not knowing about this update, wanted to play because me and my brother wouldn't stop talking about it. When she saw the LGBTQ+ role, my brother said, "What does the rainbow mean?" and she said, "It means they're all gay." So a few days ago when my brother was playing, he said, "What does the rainbow mean?" Because he forgot about the role. My mom instantly looked over at his tablet and said, "Don't click that, sweet boy, it's bad." I chose the female role because my mom was still around, and my brother chose the male role. After the first round, I saw my mom was in the bathroom, so I decided to choose the LGBTQ+ role and got a not-so-obvious trans character, Bailey. If you don't know, Bailey has the trans flag on her shirt, but because of the way the creator made the shirt, it just looks like stripes. The first few times I played, I didn't even realize it was a trans flag. So I hoped my mom didn't, and she didn't notice, so that's good. My mom is something else. I definitely feel bad for OP. At some point you can see this coming to a head, especially if the mother finds out the situation with the relationship, and you just kind of hope that when faced with the realities of the situation that the mom will be able to get past whatever reservations there are about it and work on improving when they find out the situation involving their own child, rather than destroying the relationship. This next story is by FlakySlice76. Entitled Parent asks me to reevaluate whether or not I want to keep my job, so I did. I, 19-year-old female, work for my neighbors as a full-time nanny for their baby girl Lena, 1-year-old female. They have 2 other daughters, Haley, 8, and Tia, 11. But I have been specifically instructed by their parents that I am only there for Lena, not them. I wear a mask my entire workday, and so do the 2 older girls and parents. We are very aware and safe. So this past Friday, I was getting up for work, and I received a text from my boss. I'll call her Rachel, detailing that she and her husband would both be gone from the house until noon, and I was to skip my 11 a.m. break in order to make sure the other 2 girls would be supervised. I had just woken up, so I said okay and went to make my coffee. I have a hard time saying no on the spot, and it takes me a minute to think some things through. When Lena went down for her nap that morning, I texted both bosses and told them that I completely understood that there was going to be appointments they had or things they needed to do, but I would like to be asked if taking on 3 children and skipping my break is something I'm willing to do rather than told. I also told them that my hourly for all 3 girls is $20 compared to the $15 I make watching Lena alone, and that I would like to be paid as such. I received a long text from their mom around 15 minutes later that basically said they felt as though they had made several exceptions where my pay is concerned, and that she was perturbed by my message. She then went on to detail 3 different instances in which they had shown me kindness and felt as though I should have made an exception. To top it off, she asked me to reevaluate over the next 2-week period whether or not I wanted to keep my job. I was really taken back by this message, so I called my mom and asked her what she thought. My mom was pissed. She told me that pre-apocalypse, she would drive Haley and Tia to school in the morning along with my sister and would pick them up as well in the afternoon. I guess there was plenty of times my bosses assumed my mom would babysit after school with a minimal heads up and leave. My mom had to tell them to stop or pay her for their time. I've also kind of felt like they were dumping all their kids on me, especially because I serve as unpaid supervision for the 2 eldest girls due to the fact that both parents work in isolated parts of the home. I constructed my own message back and detailed my own 5-point list of kindnesses that I had shown the family, including last summer when I worked the same job I work now for $5 an hour to help out when the mom had to take on a summer job. I have also recently agreed to take on an extra 10 hours weekly with no increase in pay to show my appreciation for this job. I then told her that I didn't understand how any of what she said had to do with the fact that I need to be asked in advance to take care of all 3 girls. I told her I was unsure of what I had said that was deserving of a response asking me to reconsider if I wanted to keep my job. I put in my 2 weeks and told her that I did not appreciate my job stability being threatened over something so minimal, to use this time to find alternative childcare, and that we would part as friendly neighbors. They pretty much freaked out. I don't think Rachel was actually expecting me to quit. She told me I had stressed her out by texting her in the first place and that she was just trying to make sure I was being properly paid, because I had made it sound like they were shortchanging me. I told her they were, and she shouldn't have threatened me. She looked at the floor, and her poor husband was trying to do so much damage control. It was pretty awkward. I do love the little one I babysit, but this has been such a mentally and physically taxing job as it is. I guess this was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. This is kind of a bittersweet malicious compliance. I'm gonna miss her, but not how tired I am. And I definitely won't miss being taken advantage of. If you made it down here, thanks. I know it's not a super juicy story, but standing up for myself felt like a small victory. To me, it definitely sounded like an attempt at a guilt trip or just a threaten outright to make you just comply and keep working for less than what you're really deserving to be paid. If you're able to get out of there and find another job that supports you just fine, really that's what you gotta do. Because if they're going to act like that at the first semblance of wanting to be properly paid, it sounds like they're trying to take advantage of you as much as possible. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.